I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Meanakeims.
All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What is going on, everybody? Mike Kadlick here. Taylor Kyle's there, back with another episode of Patriots Daily here on the CLNS Media Network, powered by PrizePicks and Game Time. And today we are also joined by a very special guest. His name is Russell Brown. He's an NFL draft analyst, but he also writes about and pods about the Detroit Lions. So who better to have come on the show to tell us all about New England's new defensive coordinator, Terrell Williams. So before we get into it, Russell, thank you so much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure. And how the heck are you doing on this lovely Thursday evening?
I'm good, man. Outside of everybody in the NFL taking my coaches, man.
I
mean,
Sorry about that.
Yeah, things are a little rough right now, right? I mean, it's been a tough week for us, losing kind of an upset special with the Commanders, but then you get the news of the coaches leaving. But overall, I'm good. Kind of just letting the dust settle behind me and getting excited to go down to Mobile for the Senior Bowl. So things are good, and I appreciate you guys for letting me join you today.
Good little Mobile plug there. Taylor will be down there. We'll likely have Russell on the show again to kind of talk some prospects and things like that. But first, it's all about Terrell Williams. Like we just said, he is the Patriots' new defensive coordinator, and he coached the defensive line with the Detroit Lions this season. So, Russell, before we get into him, Williams specifically and what he can bring to the Patriots, can you just kind of give us an overview of the defensive line scheme, the front that they kind of worked with this season with Williams at the helm?
Yeah, I mean, the Lions ran a predominantly 4-man front. That's their base front. They did a lot of nickel stuff with the 4-2-5. So we pretty much saw a lot of 4-down linemen. And there were times that they would take, an outside linebacker, predominantly a Sam linebacker, and bump them down to the line of scrimmage, and they would play in that stand-up role. So then you'd maybe get a 5-man front. But they would take Aiden Hutchinson, Zadarius Smith, those guys, and they would stand up more often than not out of that 4-man front. So you're going to see, the traditional, 5 technique with a 3 technique with a 1 technique, and then probably another 5 opposite of that. Or you might even see something with like a wide 7 or something along those lines. And that's what we saw this past year and really throughout Aaron Glenn's scheme. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Williams does differently from Aaron Glenn, because I'm assuming he did a lot of his stuff within his defensive line structure to go with Aaron Glenn's scheme overall. So I'll be really intrigued to see what he does there with Mike Vrabel, what kind of guidance he gets on that, and ultimately with the Patriots personnel. There's a common theme in coaching, and we say this in the high school level all the time. KYP, know your personnel. So he's going to come in, know his personnel, and figure out where they go best. So I'll be really intrigued with that. But I would have to guess you're going to probably see a mix between either a 3-man front or more often than not a 4-man front, if I had to guess off of just the Patriots scheme and personnel.
And I'm trying to catch up on what the Titans did with Mike Vrabel with Terrell Williams, and I think it's the same thing, a lot of 4-down fronts. And I know Vrabel said he wanted to be multiple up front, and for me, that's what the Patriots do, where you have the odd fronts, you have the 4-down fronts, you also have some of the 3-down in the pass rush situations and things like that. So if anything, I thought it was actually more basic than what I was expecting. So I'm curious, because we're wanting to know how the Patriots might change their personnel, what they may prioritize more. So when it comes to like what you mentioned, the Patriots call an adjuster role, that's pretty much Jelani Tavai, where he's really more of a will when they want to go with the 2 off-ball linebackers, but when they want to go with 5 guys down, he'll become the same in those situations. Yeah. But with the more 4-down looks, do you think maybe that adjuster would be more valuable if they had an Abdul Carter, Jihad Campbell, somebody who could be that weak side linebacker, more explosiveness, but also bump down to give you some pass rush as well versus, because in 4-down fronts, you don't want Jelani Tavai as one of those guys on the edge because he doesn't give you any pass rush.
Absolutely. I think Abdul Carter would be a home run for them there at the 4th overall pick if they ended up getting him, because I think he's versatile enough to do multiple things within your defense. And kind of to your point, you need to have some versatility there to play in multiple spots. And you bring in a guy like Carter who would, I think, be a weapon for the front 7, because I think you can play him off the ball. You can put him down on the line of scrimmage. He can play as a 3. He could play as a 4-eye. He can play in multiple spots. So I would be really intrigued with that. And ultimately, I mean, what do they do with a player like, for example, a Keon White and his size? You look at how big he is overall. are they going to have maybe a certain threshold for some of these defensive linemen that they start to bring in for Terrell Williams to work with? Because they kind of had that in Detroit, not going so far back to like Tennessee, because, you had Jeff Simmons and Danico Autry, and he did great things for Danico Autry. But just looking at like what he had in Detroit, right? He made it work with guys like Muhammad off the practice squad, Pat O'Connor, Levi Ozarike, and then you look at Josh Paschal. But those guys aren't, 6'5", 6'6", 260 pounds. They're more
no Barmore.
Yeah, exactly. They're 6'3", 6'4", 285 pounds, 290 pounds. And the reason that is so you can dominate against the run. You can have guys that can two gap, they can squeeze blocks down. And that's what Ozarike did really well. That's what Paschal did really well this year for us. So I think that's going to be the thing with the Patriots defensive line moving forward. Guys that can play multiple spots, but really stop the run. And then maybe if you add a guy like an Abdul Carter, that's your pass rush guy that's going to go after it on those key down and distances like 3rd and long.
You guys are getting me. You're getting me way too excited with Abdul Carter, because I just noticed it. The more it gets closer to the draft, the more the reports come out and whatnot. It feels like he's going in that top 3.
Matt Miller just sent out a tweet being like, "Oh, he's going number 1." I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna trash my phone. Thank you. But there's one more follow-up little scheme question. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm gonna get excited about the X's and O's stuff, but
go for it.
I love you getting excited about Keon White, because I was looking at the tape where against the Chargers he had his hand in the dirt a lot, and he was bringing it to Joe Alt, to Rashawn Slater, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe this will work, and then maybe in pass rush situations, Carter's on the field at the edge spot, then you get Keon White inside. But I'm also curious, because in those 4-down fronts, the way that you respond, especially in run defense, if you're getting punched in the mouth, it can be really hard to consistently be a good run defense with 4-down linemen. So what were the answers or maybe adjustments when teams were able to run on the lines pretty well? I know the Commanders had some success, especially when they were using that option stuff. And then in some pass rush situations as well, I feel like there was a lot of load fronts for Tennessee. What did you really see? Was it just kind of the 4-down linemen, but in different spots? And was it a lot of games, or were they just trying to create one-on-one matchups?
Yeah, I think they try to create a lot of one-on-one matchups. I really think the guy that maybe they used to plug and scheme up in the middle was more so DJ Reader. He faced a lot of double teams. I can't remember where I saw the stat, but for the season, in the regular season, he was one of the top 3 defensive linemen on the interior that saw double teams this year. So he got double teamed a bunch because he was pretty much playing as that one tech. And there were times, like if you go to the Commanders game, they would line up in that over front, and he was just, keep in mind, DJ Reader had the worst game of the season against the Commanders. He was terrible. He was getting knocked around all over the place. He was getting double teamed, and guys were sealing him off pretty easily. But I think one of the things that, with Terrell Williams that you're going to see is he going to get guys that, as you mentioned, Keon White, that can maybe be more so on the edge. He's going to bump inside, and that's going to give you an opportunity where you can be a little bit more balanced against not just the run, but also the pass for those guys that can really move outside the pocket, like a Jaden Daniels or a Lamar Jackson, or in their case with the Patriots. How can you stop Josh Allen? You got to be able to stop the run. So you're going to be able to plug the middle with guys like Keon White. And if you get a guy like Carter, or you move some of the other guys that you have around up front, whether that's a Christian Barmore, maybe it's Deatrick Wise. I don't know who they're going to bring back. I know some of those guys are free agents. So we'll see what they do. But, you look at what the Patriots did with stopping the run statistically this past year. They gave up about 2,300 rushing yards. One of the bottom levels of the NFL. The Lions were top 5, and they only gave up about 1,700 rushing yards this year. So a lot of credit to Williams on that and what he was able to do. And even looking at what Dan Campbell said about him last year, as they hired him at the combine and stuff like that, he spoke really highly of Williams. He said he's the best D-line coach in the league. He really praised his ability to develop he has got experience with game planning. So he did a lot of that stuff for the Lions. And I think that's going to go a long way with the Patriots defense as they kind of shape this up to fit what he needs.
I'm glad you mentioned what Campbell kind of had to say about him, before the combine, and, what he's like as a coach. And I think one thing that Patriots fans and, even media sort of like ourselves are wondering is his lack of play calling experience going to hinder him, because he's never done it before. And the fact that the Patriots had a defensive line coach as their DC last year, and there was kind of inexperience there because it's seemingly more of a specialist role rather than, taking care of the entire secondary or, the entire linebacker room. And
Yeah.
so I guess all wrapped up into one. Williams' coaching style, what you or the Lions saw from him this season. And do you think it's an issue that he's never called plays, or do you think that's going to kind of just come with the territory?
I think it's going to just come with the territory because he's going to be under this guidance of Mike Vrabel. And as we all know, he's got the experience of pretty much everything. So I think it's one of those things where I don't know if he can fail in this role unless, of course, the offense doesn't get going. They don't win football games and they can't stop a soul. Obviously, it's a different conversation. And I look like an idiot here, but I think they're going to.
Somebody clip this. We'll make sure we reset.
Yeah. Roast me later on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft. Nice little plug. But I think he's going to be okay with everything in general. And just looking at his coaching style, I mean, he brings a lot of energy. He forces these guys to compete. And that's why they saw the success that they had with some of these defensive linemen after Aiden Hutchinson went down. Obviously, there's a big gap. There's a void there. You can't replace an Aiden Hutchinson, but they saw something with Muhammad from their practice squad. And he played 9 games. He started in 2. He only played in 23% of the defensive snaps this year. He still had 5 or 6 quarterback hits, 4 or 5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. Levi Ozarike, he's a prime example. He had the best year of his career this year, and that's coming off of a back injury and all of those things. And he looked a lot more explosive. He was a lot more versatile this year. I felt like going into this year, he was predominantly going to play as a 3 technique. That wasn't the case. He moved all over the place for them, and he ended up with 13 quarterback hits, which was a career high for him. And then, as I mentioned, Pat O'Connor, the things that he did, he's a veteran in this league. He only had 18 tackles this year, but it was a career high. So he got a lot out of the players that he had up front, and he did the best with what he could. And the same thing could be said with Aaron Glenn. They did the best with what they could due to the injuries that they sustained all year long. And we know the list of injuries, but I think you're going to get a guy that's going to be highly motivated to find success as a coach. He's been successful everywhere he went. So regardless of job titles and everything else, I think he's going to find that success, and he's going to push these defensive players that they have and really get the best out of them. And I'm excited about one of my favorite players that was in the draft a few years ago, and Christian Gonzalez. I can't wait to see the development that continues to go, because he's a stud already, and he could potentially be an all-pro with this coaching staff the way that it's lining up to be. So we'll see how it goes.
A lot of what you're saying is just music to our ears, because you're talking about the lack of depth. You're talking about developing young guys, overcoming when your star players go down. And that's what it was with the Patriots last year. We kept coming on this show every day, every week, just saying, like, it feels like they just don't have enough talent. I don't know. You can't squeeze water out of a rock, but the best coaches are able to do that. They're able to say, what is this player good at? How can I maximize them? So I guess my next question would be a little bit deeper of a dive into what he does specifically to get the best out of these guys. Of course, it's hard because we don't know how they're coached exactly, but the things you saw on the field, and I know we got some film up here. We can pull that up if you'd like to make it a little bit easier, but I'm really interested to see how he squeezes the best out of these guys, because if you can do that with some of the guys they already have at the top right now, and then maybe add some more pieces, Christian Gonzalez is going to be very, very happy. So let me pull these up real quick.
Yeah, I mean, and just to kind of answer, I mean, looking at film right here as you pull up a tweet from 2023, and it's still a good play from Ali McNeil and those types of things, but I want to look at the players around him, right? Like you can see Aiden Hutchinson really wide, like a wide 9, good spin move by him that he goes to the well far too many times in a game. And that was something that Hutch did a ton in 2023. Didn't really do it that much in 2024. And I get it. He didn't play in every game. It was a short-lived season for him. But look at the guys around him, right? I mean, you got guys that are just plugging gaps. They're just bull rushing. They're not really getting any depth or explosiveness off the ball. They were kind of just up in their stance, kind of chest to chest with the offensive lineman there. Even looking at McNeil, who I highlight, pad level's a little high, goes for a swim move. Doesn't really, it's just kind of sloppy, right? He does okay, but it's not really
just kind of there. He's not doing a whole lot.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, so I'm glad you said that, because I read that violence is a big, big thing for Terrell Williams. And it's all about, we want to get knocked back. We want to create disruption. I don't know a whole lot of great defensive linemen who weren't violent players. And his resume is pretty damn good. The guy's coached Cameron Wake. He's coached Jarrell Casey, Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry had a Pro Bowl under him. So that's a great example there. Let's see if there's some other ones we can find as well, because I love that philosophy. When we talk about Keon White, he said last year, I wanted to be coached harder. And he said it not directly, but pretty much was like, I'm not getting coached the way I want to. Now, hopefully he has somebody who can really motivate him and be able to get the most out of him, both mentally and physically. So again,
Yeah.
get real excited.
No, yeah. And then looking at this next clip here, I mean, Josh Paschal takes on the center. He's in the sake of the defense, he's aligned over the right tackle here, so he's on the right side. And the center's going to pull, and he takes that on, squeezes it down a little bit. Had it been the year before, I think he probably would have, I don't want to say get leveled, but he would have probably got washed pretty easily. Doesn't necessarily wrong arm this like he's supposed to with his left arm and rip underneath and down the line of scrimmage. But if you see here, Hutch on the left side, opposite, he does a good job just squeezing down, bending down the line of scrimmage and making the tackle. Ended up being only a 3-yard gain, but that's a big part in stopping the run, because it can't just be on all the linebackers all the time, right? Like, your defensive line has got to get through and make some plays, and Hutch does so on this one. So I thought that was a good one to highlight.
Yeah, and condensing on those kickouts. If it wasn't Anthony Jennings, it felt like it was a complete roll of the dice.
To this year, I think this year was more so focused on getting a little bit more penetration, whereas the year before in 2023 and even in 2022, it was more so gap control. Let me control the gap. Let me plug a gap and force these runs to bounce outside and those types of things. But it really hurt them in passing downs because they weren't getting any pressure. So, I mean, that's the downside. And I think if you look at, statistically where they were with Aiden Hutchinson a year ago, he ended up with 11.5 sacks. He had 7.5 sacks this year. If you eliminate his 7.5 sacks, they're right on par to what they were doing a season ago. So they were still able to stop the run and still find success without their best pass rusher. So that's a big kudos to Williams.
Terrell Williams is clearly the Patriots guy, because it's so funny. Last year, the Patriots were like, hey, we're getting rid of Lawrence Guy because he's a run stopper. We're going to bring in Armand Watts. We're going to, get more pass rush because we're not getting enough. We're going to be more aggressive. And then they were not only, obviously, injuries affected that, but they were the worst pass rush and the worst run defense. So they didn't get a whole lot of anything out of that whole change in philosophy. So Terrell Williams hopefully going to bring some of the discipline and fight back to this run defense.
A quick question here before we wrap it up. One final one. Long story short, Aaron Glenn goes to the Jets. You would have been comfortable with just elevating Terrell Williams to defensive coordinator. Is that something that you think would have been appropriate for the Lions? Your thoughts on that? Like, yes, it looks good for the Patriots. Would he have been on Detroit's radar? Yeah,
I think it would have been. I think you get guys that are familiar with him, and the locker room knows what he brings and provides to practice and in the meeting room. And those are all big things and big pieces. So you lose that now, and it's like, all right, well, how are we going to replace that? It sounds like we're bringing in Casey Rogers, the Bucs defensive line coach here in Detroit.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So it sounds like that's going to be a lateral move for him. It was rumored that he was going to be the defensive coordinator. That's what I had heard. So I was like, okay, that's an upgrade for him. So I don't know what direction they're going to end up going here in Detroit, but I would have been perfectly fine with Williams as the defensive coordinator, because you get an experienced guy. I mean, he's been around for 28 years. If there's anybody that deserves an opportunity to be a coordinator, it's this guy. So a lot of opportunities have passed him by. He now gets his shot, and I'm excited to see what he does in New England. 4th overall pick. A lot of good things happening, I think, with New England with Mike Vrabel coming to town.
It definitely feels that way, and that's why we want to wrap it up with this, though, right? Experienced head coach, experienced offensive coordinator, experience on the defensive coordinator side. The roster is still barren right now. They do have a lot of cap space. They do have the 4th overall pick, but now it's really, turn over the roster and get this thing cooking again. Any potential free agents from Detroit that could potentially be on their radar here moving forward this offseason, top of mind, or things that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, Carlton Davis is set to be a free agent. It sounds like they would like to bring him back, but if not, I mean, I don't know if he had any type of bond with Williams at all. But Zadarius Smith, right? He's set to possibly be a free agent. I think there's an option there. So if they pick up the option, they bring him back. If not, he's going to hit the market. Maybe New England's a place for him if he had a good rapport with Williams. Again, he was only here for 7 or 8 games or whatever it was. Outside of that, I don't think they have a ton of free agents up front, because they still have a lot of young guys. Josh Paschal, Levi Ozarike, Aiden Hutchinson, all these guys are still on rookie deals. Those are kind of the key guys. Outside of that, you're looking at practice squad guys, because Aleem McNeil's locked in. DJ Reader's got
I
another
was so
year.
mad about that. I was happy for you. I was very upset for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, the core guys, I think, are kind of out. But, could he look at, a Pat O'Connor? Could he look at a Miles Adams? Could he look at a, Muhammad, who I think, again, he got a lot out of him. Mitchell Acude is a Sam linebacker I really liked in the preseason. I was surprised he didn't make the 53-man roster. I had a film breakdown on the Lions Wire back in August on him saying that he should, and he ended up only playing like 40 or 50 snaps this year, which is unfortunate. So clearly maybe he wasn't ready, but it's going to be interesting. Was there anybody behind the scenes that he had that rapport with to bring in, and does he look that way? Or do they look at more so some former Titans, that were a part of that regime and what they have. So I think that they're going to have some options because him, Vrabel, McDaniels, these guys are experienced and they've got, relationships around the league with multiple coaches and players. So I think it's all good stuff when you have that type of experience as you try to build some type of juggernaut here.
Well, Russell, you're getting us excited. You're getting Patriots fans excited about
Good
this.
juice,
Finally,
man.
yeah, good stuff. Some true experience and excitement going on with the Patriots here. So thank you so much for all of the information. We truly appreciate it. But before we let you go, tell our fans, everybody watching, where they can find you, what you're up to. And I know you did it a little bit there with the @Twitter account there, but give yourself a quick plug because we want to let everybody know what you're up to.
Yeah, find me on Twitter or X @Russ NFL Draft. Pretty much all I do is sit there and post film all the time. That's the only really social media that I use. So find me there. And then, of course, you can go over to lionswire.com and you'll find my articles on there, film breakdowns, those types of things. You can go to Detroit Lions Podcast on YouTube or Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Pod, whatever you get your podcast. You can find my show on there. And then Fantasy Pros, Betting Pros. I do a lot of betting content for Betting Pros, but NFL draft stuff with Fantasy Pros, like mock drafts, big boards, those types of things. I'll have a mock draft coming after the Super Bowl. That's 1.0. So we'll see if we can stay in the top 10 of most accurate mock drafters. I think as of right now,
Let's go.
If I'm on this 5-year pace, I'll be number one if it goes the way it's going. So we'll see what happens, but probably going to butcher it, and I just jinxed myself.
I was going to say.
So we'll see.
I think you're going to be terrible, and I'm like the reverse jinx, so there you go.
Of course. Well, again, thank you so much. We appreciate the time. This was awesome. Give Russell a shout out and a follow on social media. Great work. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate you, buddy. See you soon.
See you.
There he goes, Russell Brown. That was cool. That was fun.
I'm genuinely very excited.
Another nice, informative information sesh on one of the Patriots' new defensive coordinators. So we're going to get to it. We're going to get to the mailbag here in just a second. You guys asked a ton of awesome questions on Twitter. If you have any more questions, throw them in the chat. However, before we get to that, quick word from our friends at PrizePicks. We'll be right back. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all, and all you have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks, and the big game in the NFL is almost here, which means it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season with PrizePicks, the best place to win cash while watching the game. PrizePicks is also giving away a free pick for the big game, where one of the starting quarterbacks will only need to throw for 1 yard to win. And if you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you will win real cash. So sign up today on the PrizePicks app. You'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So make sure you sign up today, download the app, and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Come play on PrizePicks with us and use that code CLNS. You get those $50 instantly after you play that lineup. This weekend for the games, there is a free pick on the PrizePicks app for the NFC Championship game. It is Jaden Daniels to have more than half a passing yard. It gives you a free square in your lineup. We'll have all of the action up there this weekend on my Twitter account, so make sure you follow along and use that code CLNS to get $50 instantly. So, Taylor, mailbag. Well, for actually 2 things. We'll break down Russell in a second. little NFL breaking news. We talked about Trent Baalke getting canned yesterday, and now all of a sudden Liam Cohen is back to being the favorite to be the Jaguars head coach. So that's pretty wild. And I would say good for Shad Khan for actually tearing off the Band-Aid finally. He waited way too freaking long, but the fact that he was able to get him out of there, and then Cohen reconsidered, didn't sign his contract yet in Tampa, is pretty cool. So it looks like he's going to be the favorite for the Jaguars now.
Also, some coaching news. Assistant coach Zach Kerr has agreed to a job with the Patriots and is leaving the Giants. He was a defensive assistant for the Giants, but he was an assistant linebackers coach under Mike Vrabel, inside linebackers. So it sounds like the Patriots could have their inside linebackers coach.
Alrighty, there we go. There's our news segment. Anything stand out to you from our interview with Russell? I know it was pretty good, and we talked about most of it, but pretty insightful stuff. And it feels like it sounds like for him, someone who was kind of around that team more, that the lack of play calling isn't that much of a worry whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think that was a really encouraging part, was that he wasn't stressed about it and just emphasizing the experience that Terrell Williams has. Also, what he was able to get out of the fact that there were so many players injured. And he didn't just mention Aiden Hutchinson. It was a lot of players that went down for them, and he was still able to get the most out of the guys he had. Obviously, that would have been huge for the Patriots last season, although I still think talent-wise, there wasn't really a lot to work with, period. But at least having a coach who is one of the better defensive line coaches in the NFL to lead that room. And also, if he's your coordinator, then the identity of your defense is going to be, ideally, you're going to terrorize opponents up front. So a lot of that just got me more fired up for Terrell Williams, and I was already pretty stoked for the hiring.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the play calling thing, there was real concern there, and it clearly hindered their staff last year with Covington. But the fact that Vrabel is sort of overarching in the room compared to Mayo, who also has never called plays, I think that's that's something that kind of fixes that issue too. We'll start in the chat here from Old Man Mob, who's here every time, so we appreciate you as always. But in your opinion, Taylor, who is a realistic wide receivers coach, and who would you pick to be wide receivers coach? And are they the
Wes
same?
Wes Welker.
West and West?
Easy,
okay.
Easy. Such a slam dunk. Yeah, he's worked with Vrabel. He knows McDaniel's offense. He was already a fit before McDaniel's was hired. Now it's literally perfect. And now that there's no Bill Belichick around, as I always have to mention, because you have to wonder, maybe would Wes have had a job with the Patriots if he had a better relationship with Bill Belichick? We will never know. But now it just feels like this regime is creating so many opportunities to heal relationships and to be able to kind of just right past wrongs, like not hiring Mike Vrabel, not getting a quarterback. Actually, no, that's different because they were never picking as high to get a Drake May type. But yeah, bringing Wes Welker back, I think, would be kind of perfect.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you. I mean, the only other one is Chad Osea, which it sounds like he's still with Cleveland right now. I feel like that might not change. You kind of need to maneuver some title change or whatever from him, I believe, because he's got the pass game coordinator tag there. So I think Wes makes a ton of sense. Obviously, getting fired as the scapegoat in Miami makes him available. It'd be interesting to see if they actually do bring him in. But speaking of McDaniels, do you think he will unlock Demario Douglas and really utilize his talent in the slot?
I do. Because I think that he's going to be more of like a Danny Amendola type, where Amendola wasn't on the field all the time. He was strictly really there for the 3 wide receiver groupings. And also Josh did a good job protecting him, where a lot of his targets underneath came on out-breaking routes or short stuff kind of in the middle, like sticks. So he wasn't in the territory of linebackers to take some of those big shots. And also I think that I remember when I wrote up Demario Douglas' entire profile when he got drafted, I was saying he could kind of do a little bit of what Julian Edelman did and what Amendola did, because I do think that Pop could be used outside a little bit more than he is. Not quite like Edelman, but in the way that really Amendola was more static. He wasn't totally static, but typically, he was where he was, and Jules was the one who was moving around the formation, being put in bunches so he could be underneath and get the pick plays and everything. I felt like those combined roles would fit for Demario Douglas, so I absolutely think that Josh McDaniels will be able to get the best out of him. Also, because this is the best offensive coordinator that Demario Douglas has had by a pretty wide margin. No disrespect to Billy O.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hope, and I think that one of the things we talked about with Pop down the stretch here was kind of not being on the same page with Drake May. So that's going to be the big key here. Is now you have that experienced offensive coordinator who can really drill down the scheme, the system with you, and hopefully he takes it, learns it in stride, and can develop, because the talent's there. It's just a matter of actually making it happen. with Pop. So we'll see how that goes. Speaking of the rookies now, which Pop wasn't, so that wasn't a great transition. But besides Drake May, what besides Drake, what second-year guy do you think can benefit the most from Josh McDaniels coming in? Is it Jalen Polk? I think it's Jalen.
It would probably be Jalen Polk. But it's tough because it's not even that I don't think he picked up the offense. I think he really was just so in his head he couldn't function. But also Josh is a very demanding coach, and I think he's less nurturing maybe than an Alex Van Pelt, although he would put his foot down as well. I think Josh is a bit more intense. So I'm honestly worried about both of the young receivers. I'd say, if anything, maybe Layden Robinson, because I think this is a scheme that's going to fit him well. I think Josh McDaniels is someone who can coach every position on offense. So I think that'll benefit him, because I think with Caden, he's just such a huge question mark. Really, I'd say either one of those guys. I think they'll fit in this Josh McDaniels offense. I think McDaniels will know what he wants in an offensive line coach, whether or not it's his choice or Vrabel's. Vrabel doesn't have a ton of offensive line coach connections that really woo me. I'd love Cole Popovich to come back. So I'd go with those two guys, because even Jaheim Bell, I just need to see more before I really say that he's going to make any kind of jump.
Let's transition to the O-line coach question, because we got it on Twitter, and I've seen it 3 or 4 times now in the live chat. Who do you like? What do you think for O-line coach? Can we get a list of top targets? We talked about it a little bit. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? We've done so many shows this week. Everything's just the camera follows you when you go away.
Oh my god,
it's so funny.
Damn it.
Yeah, you're good now. But we've talked about the O-line coaches. Carmen Bursillo was candidate. Cole Popovich. Also Mike Sullivan was the other name, I believe, who works in Tennessee. What do you think? What do you like? Any sort of favorite in the clubhouse, at least for you right now, as the staff starts to get put together?
Not necessarily any favorites, but I would like someone who's worked with Josh before specifically. I think that's going to be extremely important, because a lot of the time, the guy who is the offensive line coach will often be the person who's coordinating the run game. I know when Dante was here, I don't know how it worked with Popovich and with Carmen Bursillo. I'm not 100% sure. But I do know that when Scar was here, he handled the run game, and Josh was more of the pass game. So yeah, I would just like it to be somebody he'd work with. Also, just knowing that it's someone who can coach his style of offensive line blocking. Like, I think that Mike Nwenwu's now been in like 3 or 4 different systems in his career. And I think McDaniel's one is probably just the most consistent, obviously. So Bursillo or Popovich.
Popovich, same. Yeah, I got you.
Those are 2 names that just like cannot stick in my brain. Like sometimes if I see a name, I can see it in my brain, and that helps. With them, it's just a jumble. I don't know why.
Their names are also Carmen and Cole, and they worked together, so it's kind of it's tough. It's okay.
I think they're also bald.
I think they're both bald. They were both on the same Patriots staff. And one of them left during COVID because he didn't want to get the shot, and the other one took over or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I don't want whoever it was that didn't get the COVID. Oh, let's not get into that territory,
actually. We'll move on to Mike Onwenu here. I don't remember.
One more thing. It's also funny. Who's the O-line? Dave DeGuglielmo. He looks like him, too.
He does.
Like
yes,
all
he
of
does.
those guys in my head, I'm just like, wait, who was who? Because they all have like the facial hair, the bald. That's so funny.
They're bald with a goatee, and they're all like a little hefty. Yeah, they all look the same. But one of those guys could be here. I think that's probably at the top of the list. You're right. Anyone who's worked with Josh in this scheme before. And staying on the O-line, I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't know if you do. But do you know if Mike played more tackle or guard in Josh's offense when he was here? And then also, do you think he still slides in at guard here? Or are they going to try him at tackle again?
I think he played both. I know his situation was kind of I know his situation was kind of I have no idea how to control it. It was more based on the situation around him because he was so young, and they still had 2021, they still had Shaq. Ted Karras was the right guard, and I think he got benched. But I think he still played some right guard and right tackle at some point. It's kind of fuzzy, to be totally honest. But I think his first year he played tackle, and then the next year he played guard. But I think he played multiple things that first year. Because I think he played left guard as well at some points early on, and they were like, yeah, he's not a left guard. Let me look it up. We have access to information. I don't have to just sit here looking like
we're in the internet age, Taylor. And we're live, so it's great.
All right, let me Can you make a noise or something or distract the people?
I can cough and clear my throat as I continue doing this.
Fantastic. Okay, so his first
Here we
season in 2020, he was mostly a right tackle, so we were right there. He did play both guard spots, mostly right guard, but he did play left, and he was a jumbo tackle because obviously he was still a rookie, and they had some guys, but I know Isaiah Wynn went down, which probably threw some things off. And then on the offensive line, he basically played equal amounts left guard and right tackle. He only played 2 snaps of right guard that year. Right, because they had Shaq Mason. I'm stupid.
Okay.
He was on. So yeah, Shaq was there. He was on the left side very briefly, but it was Ted Karras for most of the season.
Got it. We'll
sorry, that was painful, y'all. My God.
It's okay. This is mailbags are, the rift. We just hang out, we talk, we shoot the shit. That's what these Wednesday or Thursdays are for. See, I can't get anything right. I was trying to do this in my head yesterday. I think it was before I went to bed. I was counting. We've done so many shows this week because we had the emergency live shows, we had our night shows, we had the James White interview yesterday. I'm like, and sometimes I look back at the YouTube thumbnails. I'm like, was I wearing the same thing 2 days in a row? No, that was just our third show of the freaking day. But
tis the season, baby.
Tis the season is right. Couple questions on the defensive side of the ball for you, Taylor, before we get into an ad read with Game Time. And that is, we talked about free agents. Your thoughts on Khalil Mack being a veteran pass rusher who could potentially come to New England. Now, I was listening to some Phil Perry the other day on NBC Sports Boston. He was saying that, he had a cushy gig in LA last year, not having to work in the cold, but he went to the University of Buffalo, so maybe he's comfortable playing here. It also sounds like he just kind of decided that he is going to come back this year, so he's kind of on the verge of potentially retiring. What do you make of number 52 potentially being in Foxborough?
I love Phil. All respect to Phil. I don't think where he went to college has a damn thing to do with where he's going to go in what could be his last season in the NFL. He's not coming to the Patriots. They're still in a rebuild. Do I think they can make a strong push and maybe even, compete in the playoffs or for the playoff spots or for the last playoff spot in the AFC? Probably going to be the last one. Yeah, I think they probably could. But at the same time, let's be for real. If he's going to come to a team, it's probably going to be the one where they actually made the playoffs, where he's comfortable, both physically and in terms of just knowing the organization and everything like that. So, yeah, I don't think there's any chance he comes to the Patriots.
Chat says Khalil Mack is finished. I think I agree.
I haven't watched enough Khalil Mack. I know he's still got some moves, but I haven't watched enough consistently to know if he's got.
You're going to pay up for Zach Bond here? Someone who went from a potential special teamer from Philly all the way to came out today, finalist for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean,
he's going to.
Juwan Bentley is your Mike, and he's such a culture guy, but at the same time, next season, I think he's a free agent after the season. And then Jelani Tavai, how is he going to fit? It is nice. That's another thing that Russ mentioned, that they did have the adjuster role where he was a Sam rather than the Will, because the Will's usually a pass rusher. The Sam is the one who drops into coverage, typically because they don't rush the passer very well. So that was definitely encouraging. But yeah, I would like Zach Bond. I think it would just be interesting how they worked out what his role would be, considering I think he's more of a Mike linebacker.
Yeah.
Like Juwan Bentley.
Yeah. Another thing we talked about with Russell was Abdul Carter. However, Taylor, it sounds like, was it Matt Miller today said that Abdul Carter is the best player in the draft?
And it's probably first overall. He freaking dang it.
And I know that the Titans GM or their president said the other day during their GM's press conference that they're not going to pass on generational talent. Now, whether that meant Abdul Carter or whether that meant Travis Hunter, we'll see. But it's kind of sounded more and more like it's not going to be quarterback 1 and 2, which means these two guys are going to go. The Patriots are going to sit there at 4. Who would you go for at 4? I'm sort of starting to think it might be trade back territory there at number 4, because somebody's going to want to go get one of those quarterbacks. And then there's still some, you still have some capital there to, keep building this thing out.
So I think who I want it for. I want Mason Graham.
Oh, Mason Graham. That's right. Yeah.
Sure, he's a little bit undersized, but when you watch him play, this dude looks so NFL ready. The block recognition, the body control, the power, the fluidity, the explosiveness. I'm not saying he's Aaron Donald. I'm not obviously I would never go that far, but it's a similar kind of profile where I think people just underestimate him because he's not as physically imposing when you just look at him. He is a phenomenal player. And if they're going to run more 4-down fronts, Devon Gotchaw's probably getting phased out in a year or two. He may have a role, but I don't think you want him as one of your top 2 defensive tackles. And Christian Barmore, we have no idea what's going to happen with him. So I think Milton Williams signing him is a great first step. But also Mason Graham, if you draft him as someone who can start right away and would give you 2 dominant defensive tackles, which is one of the I think the best advantage you can have on the defensive side of the ball. Other situation, I could also see the Patriots deciding to trade this pick. Like if Vegas wants to come up for a quarterback and they can't do it until it's the Patriots, maybe you get another top 100 pick and then some other pocket change as well. In that situation, I'd be more open to like a Will Campbell if Mason Graham and the pass rush guys are gone. I'm thinking maybe Mike Green. I need to watch more tape, but from what I've heard, he's a legitimate freak. So if you want some edge rush, he could be that guy for you. Also more of a defensive end type, I think, but he can do both. But I know Will Campbell's a guard. I think he could at least be solid as a tackle as a rookie. And if you don't get if you get a Patrick McCarry, but you don't get a long-term solution at left guard, and you're still like, I don't know if Layden Robinson is the answer. Like Will Campbell is going to be a better player than Layden Robinson. No offense. That's just how it is. One's getting drafted probably top 10. The other was a 4th-round pick. These things happen for a reason. I still think that Will Campbell's a guy who's going to be a captain. He's only, I think, 22 years old. So he's super young. His career is just getting started. And it's kind of a Joe Tooney situation where now, you have a left guard, but it's a guy who legitimately could be a Hall of Fame caliber type player if obviously you get him good coaching, because his mentality is like through the roof on top of being a very physically talented player. And okay, maybe he's not a left tackle in the NFL after a season. I still think you could survive with him there, move him inside the next year, and he can play left tackle for you in a pinch, which is not something you see from a lot of left guards. So yeah, Mason Graham is my number 1. After that, I'm really hoping that they go with Will Campbell. Honestly, and Travis Hunter, I'm sorry, I'm out on. I think he's such a great player. With this regime, I would be stunned if they chose a receiver / corner.
I know, but he's just so damn good. And it's like, he's just so good. We did this during the season when it felt like it was actually like, a real possibility. We kind of both like, well, Travis Hunter would be pretty good. He's a hard worker. I know that he works his ass off. That's kind of been reported on from out there. I feel like he would probably work well with Josh McDaniels on the offensive side of the ball. But again, it feels like if one of those guys aren't there, which it's sort of sounding like it is, I'm going trade back. Like, you need capital. You need more things. And that brings me to this question. Another one, sorry, before we get to the ad read, because kind of everything's kind of building on top of each other. Do you expect Elliott Wolf to move around the board or stay pat? Because he was kind of, the one big trade back he did last year, 34-37, clearly bit him in the ass. They miss out on Ladd. They get Jalen Polk instead, and the rest, as we know, there is history. But they have so many needs. Are they going to move around? Are they going to stay put? I know we don't really have a ton of information on it, but what do you make of the idea that they can move themselves around?
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. We don't have any information. Like, we need to know more about the types of players they want, what the needs are after free agency, all those things. So really, I don't know, but I definitely think a trade is on the table. I'll say that, because if they want capital, as much as I like Mason Graham, if you can get another top 100 pick and then another top maybe 120 pick, that's more valuable than one player, because you're still picking inside the top 10. Most likely, I doubt they would trade much further than that, if even they would get to the late, aughts. So, trade is definitely on the table. I don't think we're taking anything off the table, especially if they have an effective free agency and there's no holes on the roster, glaring holes in the starting parts of the roster.
I'd be more concerned with Elliott Wolf if he was hesitant to make a trade after last year than going for it. Like, still be confident in yourself. Still go for it. You have things to fill. Like, he shouldn't be hesitant to make a move because he missed on the Jalen Polk trade last year. Like, okay, back to the drawing board, reset. Don't be shy. There's a lot of shit that we got to do here. Get out there, get on the phones, and see what happens. We'll wrap up the mailbag. Yeah.
False. False.
TD, get in the room with Taylor and watch that damn tape, because apparently that's false. But word from our friends at Game Time. Then we'll be back and wrap up the rest of the mailbag. Talk to you in just under 50 seconds. This episode is also powered by Game Time, the best place to get tickets to anything, concerts, games, and more. They have the Game Time Picks feature that makes getting tickets even easier. It filters out the fluff and only shows you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. They also have the lowest price guarantee, and they have seat views to check out exactly what it's going to look like from your seat. So make sure you download the Game Time app today to take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. What time is it?
Game time.
It's game time. Tickets right now for the Celtics tip-off in LA are just over $100 to take on the Lakers. LeBron James, if you're on the West Coast, I don't know if you are. I feel like there's probably at least one person out there of the 1,700 across all platforms watching this thing from LA. And if you're in the area, head over to crypto.com arena and you get in to watch the Celtics play the Lakers for just over $100. That is the all-in ticket price because that's what Game Time does. So head over there, use that code CLNS to get $20 off your first purchase. We'll wrap up here with a couple more, Taylor. With Josh, is it more likely they re-sign Austin Hooper? And is it also more likely that they retain Kendrick Bourne instead of getting him out of here?
Retain Kendrick Bourne, yes, because I think Josh understands Kendrick Bourne's learning style and how to use him most effectively. Resign Hooper, I don't really think that it's affected by Josh necessarily. I think that Austin Hooper played well for them last season. He's going to be cheap. Probably not a whole lot of other teams. Maybe that changes this offseason. I think maybe because he was very productive, made some plays downfield more so than he did in his previous season when he played for Josh. Yeah, he played for Josh and he played for Mike Vrabel. I forgot about that. Right. But even still, I thought that he was a candidate to come back because he already played well for them. Yeah. He played. When I was thinking the Raiders tape, that was when Josh was still the head coach for half the season.
And he had him in Tennessee. That's right.
This is kind of insane.
He's coming back.
Like, obviously came here because of the Cleveland system. And that's
right.
When we were confused and we were like, wait, he wasn't there when Van Pelt was there. I think he was in Tennessee. When what was it? When Jacoby. Remember we kept getting confused thinking that he
Yeah.
We're like, right, he never did. I think he was in Tennessee when Jacoby was in Cleveland. But yeah, kind of went down the rabbit hole there. But both guys, I think, have a very good chance of one being retained and also sticking on the roster after.
No, I'm glad you said it because I did not even put that together over the last couple of days that he played with both these guys, or he played under both these guys in Tennessee and Raiders. So again, another good connection there. So I feel like it's likely he could come back. And then Kendrick Bourne, we already talked about it the other day on our breakdown show with Josh, where he had the career year 800 yards and I think 5 or 6 touchdowns with Mac Jones. So I could see him coming back as well. All right. Speaking of guys that could be here, your friend Darius Slayton. Is he an automatic signing at this point, asks our friend Andrew De Silva, considering the scheme similarity between Brian Daboll and Josh McDaniels?
I think so. I don't think that anyone's going to be pining for Darius Slayton necessarily. No offense, but I just, I think that he is the kind of player where you'd like a big arm quarterback who can get him the ball consistently, who you think could really maximize his skill set. He does have a bit of a real drop problem, but a lot of it is just adjusting awkwardly and having to make tough grabs because his quarterbacks aren't very good. Or haven't been very good historically since he's been with the Giants. So yeah, I think he makes absolutely perfect sense because he's an X. He has the vertical speed and the yards after catch, and he can separate. He's basically other than the contested catches, he's not great there, but checks most of the boxes for what Mike Vrabel's looking for. He's inexpensive. He was a Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee, so he's good for the locker room. Veteran presence. I think that's something they could use. Obviously, one of that in KJ Osborne didn't work out for multiple reasons. And he's going to be familiar with the system. So, yeah, Slayton makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I think so, too. I mean, again, I wasn't huge on it when you brought it up at first. I still want bigger fish, right? Yeah, Darius Slayton's good. He's a good player. I want more.
Fortunately, there's only one big fish and one medium fish that's coming off just several significant injuries, unfortunately.
How about this Tyreek Hill rumor that Jeremy Fowler?
No, he's domestic.
Did you see that, though? Did you see that he mentioned that? Jeremy Fowler wrote,
trade candidate.
In NFL circles that the Patriots could trade for him.
Weird for an insider like Jeremy Fowler to have said something like that when it's very well known that Kraft has a zero tolerance policy for abusers.
Yeah,
weird. That was weird.
I wonder if that was pure speculation or some
definitely speculation. Definitely speculation.
All right. Well, with two new coordinators on the staff, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but who could return to this team? Do you think Jacoby Myers has a chance? They're going to bring back the fullback, it sounds like. We talked a little bit about Detroit players with Russell, but just and any other free agents kind of on your radar that have connections to these guys?
Oh my God, he is a free agent, Patrick Ricard. That's surprising. I don't think he's leaving Detroit. He's 31 years old. I'd be stunned.
He's Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
You said Detroit.
He's the D tackle / fullback. Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere. Jakob Johnson makes a lot of sense. He's still a free agent. I don't know why people want to trade for Jacoby so badly. I'm sorry. What would you have to send over? Like a 3rd round pick?
Yeah,
maybe
that's true.
Scenario. Just get another Jacoby. Like, what are we doing here? Obviously, Jacoby's actually proved it and all that, but you're going to give up draft capital for a guy that you could have signed who, as much as we all like him, is just a very, very good wide receiver too. Like, I think we can do better than that. Even though he's proven, I like Jacoby a lot. If he's a free agent, for sure, try to get him there. It's just money, but I don't like the idea of giving up draft capital for somebody who has a limited skill set. As much as Jacoby gets open, he does all the things a receiver is supposed to do. I just don't like the idea of giving up capital for him.
All right, I want to end it with this, Taylor, because you are, again, bullish on the 2025 Patriots. And I get it, right? There's a lot to be happy about. They still have to hit on the players, and that's going to be the most important part. I was just doing I was trying to find like Vegas odds or numbers on what the number actually is. I don't think anything's come out yet, so there's not an over-under that we can play with. But your prediction right now, 2025.
I set the over-under. How about that? I set the over-under.
You set the number and I say over-under?
I set the over-under and you give me if it's
okay. Yeah. All right. What do you think the right number is betting wise on roughly where they could be?
One, also another thing I just thought about with free agent Jacoby Brissett. I was like, oh, maybe he would come back for Josh, but then I was like, wait, Alex Van Pelt just left. He might end up following Van Pelt wherever he goes, because you'd think if he gets another job, it'll probably be developing a young quarterback. Just kind of popped into my head.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah. I think the over-under should be like, I think 7.5 is fair. I think 8.5 is generous. I think 8, because if it were 8.5, I'd probably go over, because I really do think with what they're building, like I said it on Twitter earlier, in-game management is going to be better. The front office has gotten more. I think they're building it out, and they're getting guys who have pretty good track records in their roles, although obviously none of them have been general managers before. You have a proven offensive coordinator. You have a proven head coach who's gotten better after making some mistakes earlier on. You have a defensive coordinator who's highly respected and one of the best D-line coaches in the league. Like, you can make a case for why this would be a 9-win team, but I think if we're being very fair for a team that has not gone into free agency, a team that has not drafted any players, I feel like 6.5 would be too low, because I think
I agree.
I think they'll get better than that. I think 6 wins would be a pretty big disappointment. So 7.5. What do you think?
See that you gave a good number, because like I'm trying to keep you at bay with the optimism because we got burned last year. Even though I'm excited too. I feel like this can work. And 7.5, like I got to go over. I think they get 8 wins. 8 and 9 seems like a reasonable floor for this team, considering what they have at quarterback, what they have for capital to rebuild the roster, what they have in Mike Vrabel on this coaching staff. Look, I don't think they're going to do a complete Commanders flip. Like, I don't see 12-5 just yet. Because there's a lot.
Drake being a borderline MVP candidate,
right? Drake was great. Don't get us wrong. We know that. We're excited. There's a future here, but I think it's going to be a little slower than Washington. But I do think we're going to get some incremental success here, and I do think 8 wins is a good floor. So I'm going to go over 7.5.
So all right. So what if it's 8.5? Are you sticking with 8, or would you go to 9? If I was a gambler,
if I had to take the bet,
go 9 personally. Yeah.
If I had to take it, I would take under 8.5.
Okay, I'd go over, but I think that's probably where the line will be. Like, if they are successful in free agency in the draft, I think it's going to be right at 8.5. Because 9 is like, whoa, this team has like sucked for 2.5-ish years. You can honestly say like they were almost in the playoffs in 2022. You can't say they sucked.
Right.
2021, though, they fell off a cliff. So you could say that, like, for over 2 years, they've been, like, pretty bad.
Yeah.
So 9 would be a pretty big jump. But at the same time, it's like, dude, if you're fixing this much stuff and you're organizationally doing a bit of a 180, then, like, yeah, you shouldn't be worse than, like, 7 would be disappointing, I think. Or even 8. I think 8 would probably be what people would be like, all right, fine, you got to be better. But 7 is like,
6 is, you can't have 6 wins. I think you need to have 7 wins minimum for this thing to, be on the upper trajectory. And even 7, it's like, okay, still need another year here. But like 8, 9, that's all right around where I think they're going to be. And I don't think it's much more. I think it's pretty.
And that's probably the difference between making the playoffs and not as well, to be honest, because 9 is really what you need to get in unless some crazy shit happens.
True.
So
I think that's our number.
Wow.
8 or 9 wins. So
wow. Imagine even thinking about that. Even last year, I don't think. I thought they could have been a playoff team, but I also thought that like everything.
You mentioned playoffs a few times last year, but
honestly,
it had to be right.
At the time, with who they had, with us just purely speculating and us not knowing what Gerard was, and also being pie in the sky with Gerard, admittedly.
Right.
I kind of floated it, but I was not confident. I was like, no, like they need to. I was like, 4 rookies need to be starting and playing well for that to happen. I had a lot of caveats. This year, it's like fix the trenches. And I really do think that you, by the last week of the season, will still be in contention to fight for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I'm with you. So, yeah, we'll see. There's more optimism.
Coping to end the show.
Yeah, exactly. Quick
close out cope. Close out cope.
Closing out our Thursday show with a quick cope session. We'll be back again on Friday. True Patriots Daily Week 5. Minimum 5 shows this week because we're jam-packed on the channel with all of the content coming out around the coaching staff, around the Senior Bowl, all of that good stuff. And it is mystery season in the NFL, and that's why it's so much fun because you don't know what you're going to get. Not a ton to break down game-wise, but a ton of stuff to speculate on. So we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to do a Senior Bowl preview here on the show. So make sure
Alex
to keep
is coming.
I didn't know if we wanted to tease it. We have Alex Barth from 98.5. Pat beat. Little crossover here. Alex is going to come on and preview the Senior Bowl with us tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. We'll keep in touch. TBD on a time right now. But make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate the love. Taylor says Will Campbell over Calvin Banks. Excuse me.
Kelvin.
Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out, everybody.